4 a.m. in Singapore, and a phone lights up on a nightstand. It is an email, not spam, not a calendar reminder. It is the kind of email that ends a career before the sun even comes up. Across time zones, thousands of employees are about to wake up to the exact same message, one wave at a time, country by country, like a wave of dominoes falling around the planet. Singapore first, then the United Kingdom, then the United States, where workers are quietly told to just stay home that day so they can find out in private. 8,000 jobs gone in a single announcement, another 6,000 roles that were supposed to exist, quietly erased before anyone was ever hired into them. And here is the part that makes this stranger than a normal layoff. This is not a company that is struggling to survive. This is Meta, a company that just posted record revenue, a company that made more money last quarter than most nations make in tax revenue. So why does a company printing tens of billions of dollars in profit need to cut 10% of its workforce in a single morning? The answer to that question is the story of one of the strangest, most expensive bets in the history of technology. A bet that began with a bold declaration that this company was leaving the internet as we know it behind to go build something entirely new, a virtual universe, a digital second life for humanity. They called it the Metaverse. And this is the story of how that bet quietly, expensively, and almost silently failed. Welcome back to TechNate News. If this is your first time here, we dig into the empires of Silicon Valley, the promises they make, and the numbers that tell you whether those promises were ever real to begin with. Today we are looking at Meta, not Facebook, the social network you already know. We are looking at the other Meta, the one that renamed an entire company, spent close to $100 billion, and asked the entire world to believe that we would all soon be living, working, and shopping inside virtual reality headsets. It did not happen the way they promised. So in this video, we are breaking down exactly what went wrong across 4 fronts. The vision that never landed, the war for artificial intelligence they are now losing ground in, the financial hole that just keeps getting deeper, and the growing question of whether the man steering this company can be trusted the next time he stands on a stage and tells the world what the future looks like. Rewind to late 2021. Mark Zuckerberg stands in front of a camera and makes an announcement that stuns the tech industry. Facebook, the parent company behind a family of apps used by close to half of the people on Earth every single day, is renaming itself. It will now be called Meta. Not because the social network is going away, but because the man running it believes something much bigger is coming. He describes it as the next chapter of the internet itself. Not a product one company builds, but an entire new layer of reality. A place where instead of scrolling through photos of your friends, you would strap on a headset and stand next to them as a digital avatar in a fully 3-dimensional world. Billions of dollars start flowing into a division called Reality Labs, as are hired by the thousands, and the flagship product of this new universe gets a name, Horizon Worlds, a virtual space where anyone could build their own little pocket of the metaverse and invite people in to hang out. There was only one problem: nobody showed up. Internal memos later leaked to the press revealed something almost embarrassing for a company of this size. Meta had set a modest goal of getting 500,000 people using Horizon Worlds regularly, a tiny number compared to the billions of people already using Facebook and Instagram. Even that modest goal was missed. Active users fell under 200,000, and most people who tried it once never came back a second time. One internal memo, obtained by reporters, summed up the mood inside the company with a single haunting line: an empty world is a sad world. And it really was empty. According to Meta's own internal data, the overwhelming majority of the virtual worlds people built inside Horizon were never visited by anyone at all, not once. Even the people inside the company were not using their own product. A leaked memo from the executive in charge of the Metaverse admitted that staff barely logged into Horizon themselves, and pleaded with employees to fall in love with the very software they had built. You cannot force love for a product, and you certainly cannot force the rest of the world to love something your own staff will not use. Then came the resignation that should have been a warning shot, heard across the entire industry. John Carmack. If you know anything about the history of video games, this name should stop you cold. The legendary programmer behind Doom and Quake, the man widely regarded as one of the most brilliant engineers of his generation. He had spent nearly a decade working inside Meta's virtual reality division, and when he finally walked away, he did not go quietly. In a farewell letter to staff that later became public, he did not attack the hardware, he praised it. What he attacked was the culture. He said the organization was running at roughly half the effectiveness it should have been. He talked about watching resources get squandered again and again, about warnings that took years to be taken seriously, about a company with more talent and money than almost anyone on the planet, somehow failing to turn that advantage into results. When the man who built some of the most technically impressive software of the last century tells you that your organization cannot get out of its own way, that is not a disgruntled junior employee venting online. That is a 5-alarm fire, lit by someone who has no reason to lie. Fast forward to today, and the numbers tell you everything the memos already whispered. Meta has quietly begun shifting the majority of its virtual reality spending away from headsets and towards something smaller, cheaper, and far less ambitious than the Metaverse ever promised to be. Smart glasses. The dream of a fully realized digital universe has been scaled down to a pair of Ray-Ban sunglasses that can take a photo and answer a question. It is a genuinely useful product, but it is a long way from replacing reality. Here is the cruel twist in this story. While Meta was pouring its resources into a virtual universe nobody wanted to visit, the actual next chapter of technology was happening somewhere else entirely. Artificial intelligence exploded onto the world stage, and companies like OpenAI, Google, and Anthropic became the names everyone was suddenly talking about. Meta, despite having some of the best artificial intelligence researchers on the planet, found itself playing catch-up in the exact race it should have been positioned to win. So the company did what it always does. When it senses it is falling behind, it pivoted hard. Billions of dollars that were once earmarked for virtual reality got redirected into a new initiative called Meta Super Intelligence Labs. The message from leadership became unmistakable. Forget the metaverse. Artificial intelligence is now the future, and this time we mean it. But pivoting this fast comes with a cost, and that cost falls on the people who show up to work every single day. As part of the very same restructuring that produced those 8,000 layoffs, close to 7,000 more employees were quietly reassigned into brand new artificial intelligence teams, whether their skill set matched the new mission or not. One detail from inside the company captures just how uncomfortable this transition has become. Around the same time as the layoffs, employees were asked to install monitoring software on their work computers, tracking keystrokes, mouse movement, and periodic screenshots, all in the name of training artificial intelligence agents that could eventually perform white-collar tasks on their own. Think about the timing of that for a moment. At the exact same time, the company is asking thousands of workers to help train an artificial intelligence system. It is also quietly showing many of those same workers the door. Employees were not shy about pointing out the irony to reporters, describing a growing feeling that they were being asked to build the very technology that could one day replace them. That is not a company that looks confident about its position at the top of the artificial intelligence race. That is a company scrambling to catch a train that already left the station. Now let us talk about the money, because the financial picture here is almost hard to comprehend. Since Reality Labs was created in late 2020, the division has lost more than $80 billion. Not revenue, losses, pure, unrecovered losses. In the most recent full year alone, the unit lost more than $19 billion, while bringing in barely more than $2 billion in revenue. That means for every dollar the Metaverse division earned, the company lost roughly $9 chasing the dream. Zuckerberg himself has publicly acknowledged that the losses may have finally peaked, which is corporate language for we have been losing money for 6 straight years, and it keeps getting worse every single year until now. And here is the thing, that $80 billion hole is not even the scary number anymore. It has been completely dwarfed by what comes next. Meta first told investors it would spend somewhere between $115 and $135 billion this year on artificial intelligence infrastructure. Then, just a few months later, it raised that number again to somewhere between $125 and $145 billion, blaming rising costs for the very chips and data centers this whole plan depends on. To put that in perspective, The new spending figure alone is larger than the entire cumulative loss the metaverse racked up over 6 years combined. This is the pattern that should worry anyone watching closely. A company makes an enormous promise, burns tens of billions of dollars chasing it, quietly walks the promise back, and then immediately makes an even larger promise in a brand new direction, asking investors and the public to simply trust that this time the bet will pay off. Meanwhile, the company is telling its own employees that belts need to tighten. Total compensation for many workers has reportedly dropped by tens of thousands of dollars per year, even as capital spending climbs into the hundreds of billions. Somebody is paying for this transition, and it is increasingly looking like it is not the executives making the promises. Which brings us to the real question underneath all of this. Not whether the metaverse failed, it clearly did. The real question is whether we should believe the next map this company draws for the future. Because this is not the first time Mark Zuckerberg has stood on a stage and told the world where technology is headed, only for reality to quietly disagree with him. There was the cryptocurrency project, once positioned as a new global payment system that would reshape how the entire world moves money, shut down after regulators and central banks around the world pushed back hard. There was Portal, the smart video calling device pitched as an essential piece of hardware for every home, which quietly disappeared from the product lineup. And now there is the metaverse itself, once described as nothing less than the next chapter of the internet, scaled down to a pair of camera-equipped sunglasses. None of this means the man is not brilliant, or that the company is not capable of building genuinely useful products. The advertising business alone continues to print staggering profits every single quarter. But there is a very clear and repeating pattern here. Announce a civilization-altering vision, spend an almost unbelievable amount of money chasing it, quietly narrow the definition of success once reality sets in, then pivot to the next big vision and ask everyone to believe again. At some point, the pattern itself becomes the story. So here we are, a company that convinced the world it was about to reinvent human reality itself, now selling smart glasses and laying off thousands of employees at 4 a.m. to fund its next big swing. The metaverse is not entirely dead. Somewhere out there, a small number of people are still logging into nearly empty virtual worlds, still wearing headsets that never quite became the next smartphone. But the grand vision, the one that renamed an entire company and consumed close to $100 billion, has quietly been shelved in favor of whatever comes next. The question worth sitting with is this: when the next civilization-altering announcement comes, and it will come, how much trust should any of us extend before the receipts are actually in hand? That is it for this one. If you want to see where this story goes next, stick around, because the trail from this exact same playbook leads directly into the story of artificial intelligence, and that story might be even bigger than this one. See you in the next video.